It's my honor to introduce the keynote second, the speaker, Nigel Green. The title of the lecture is the Physical Literacy Through Spectrum, a Pedagogical Framework for Holistic Development in Physical Education. As you know, Nigel is the president and the consultant of the International Physical Literacy Association, IPLA. And now, he also board and the exclusive committee of European Physical Education Association, EUPEA. Just as you know, Nigel, he promoted the idea of the physical literacy all of the world. Yeah, and I will send my special thing for Nigel for help us to develop physical literacy idea in Taiwan. So in Taiwan, all our physical education teachers, they use physical literacy idea in their physical course. And in Taiwan, very special. Every one physical education teacher, they all know and use the spectrum teaching. Yeah. The spectrum teaching is in our national document of the teaching. Now, we use the warm big hand to welcome Nigel. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, and as the last presenter said, yeah, let's keep awake. It's a tough day. It's been a long day so far. It's been interesting, but it's hard work. I know I've been sat there and I've been looking around, watching people, and their eyes are going, their heads going, but we'll try and keep you moving and we'll try and keep you thinking. First of all, a few thanks. First of all, thanks to the committee for organising this. I think it's a fantastic event. The breadth of experience, the countries, the cultures that are here, and the opportunity it provides to have time to talk and to share is really valuable. I'd also like to thank the speakers who've gone on so far today, and I've just been jotting down some points. So Nikos, you started off with 1966 with Mostyn's book. And the first four things you said, physical, social, emotional, cognitive, right? You'll hear a lot of that coming up soon. Mark then carried on with holistic development, lifelong engagement in physical activity. You'll hear a lot of that coming in. I've forgotten the gentleman's name from Greece, but he talked about behaviour change, active for life, choices and understanding students. And then this afternoon, it's changed again, and what we've heard is motivation, enjoyment, engagement, autonomy, social emotional skills, and in particular the last one on early years and the importance and how the spectrum can be used to develop children through those early stages, and having that breadth of the spectrum is absolutely key. So thank you for everyone for that. Robin has just said, yeah, I'm involved in quite a few things. I have got some credibility. I taught in schools for 29 years, right? So 4 different schools, secondary 11 to 18. So I've been at the coalface. I know what it's like. I've worked in tough schools. I've worked in schools with limited facilities. I've also worked in a nice school with good facilities. And I think my current role allows me to travel around the world and see different schools, different teachers in different environments. And I think we always have to have that at the back of our minds. I was talking about this last night. I went to a school in Nepal that was a 2-hour walk up a hill. The school was 3 concrete buildings with a drop down the mountain one side, a drop down the mountain the other side. And they said, well, what would you do here from a physical activity perspective? But then you saw the children playing kabaddi. You saw them doing gymnastics activities. You saw them running down the mountain, climbing trees, swimming in the stream, and so on. So there's lots of activities you can do if you're creative. But we can't just think of the Western world and the classes of 30 and the facilities that we've got. We need to think of everyone. And I believe the Spectrum does have the answers for that and provides the teachers with the tools in the toolbox for that. So what else was I going to say? Yeah, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to physical literacy briefly. Okay, it is briefly. I could spend a long time. Min knows that because I spoke to him for quite a long time, or a few years ago in Taiwan. I'm then going to relate the key principles of physical literacy to the Spectrum, and then look at how the Spectrum also relates to physical literacy facilitators or physical educators. Okay, so let's get going. Yeah, Bill Bezic. I don't know if anyone know him. He was my lecturer when I was training. And I don't know, and I can't remember because it was a long time ago, I don't know whether he shared the Spectrum when I was at university. I wasn't sure. But the way in which he taught us was different. It wasn't just, this is the skill, this is basketball, this is a layup, this is a dribble. He said, right, we're playing a game. It's bench ball, effectively. I'm just going to introduce one rule. Thou shalt not clobber. Okay, play. And he let us get on with it. And then he introduced another rule. And then he introduced another rule. So I think it's a bit like games for understanding, as was just mentioned then. But I also think he made me think about my pedagogical choices that I then went on to use in the different schools I'd worked in and the universities I'd worked in. So he started that. There's an organisation in the UK which has now merged with another one, and they had a journal, and there was an article in there about Moston Spectrum. And I remember reading that, and it sort of reminded me, I'd forgotten there are so many styles that I could use. And as a reflective teacher, I thought, you know what, I need to go back and look at this. And by that time, I was head of department, so I got my team to work on it, to reflect on it, to think about their practices and how they could perhaps do things differently. And I know models has just been mentioned, and I'd done the same with models when sport education came out. I said, we need to look at this and to see whether it will work and how it will work, how it will impact on the people we're working with. So then I moved from schools and I went to university, John Moores in Liverpool, training teachers. And at university, you have this flexibility, don't you, where you can put in your own modules. You can write them. As long as someone passes them, in they go. So I thought, yep, let's get Mostons into a module. Let's make sure that the students understand the Spectrum and how they can use it in their pedagogy as they move forward. So I did that at university. And then I was fortunate that when I retired, I got offered or invited to go to different countries and to work with teachers in different countries. I'm seeing Shraddha sat there from India, and that was the first port of call going to India. And I remember these 43 teachers sat in front of me from three schools, yeah, they were big schools. And I was thinking, well, what do I do? I'd already planned lots of things, and I got things there. And the Mostons model, the Spectrum, was the first thing I went through with them to explain that to them. And I've used it time and time again. Most recently, I was in Sri Lanka. And I was working with sports coaches and teachers and students in different parts of Sri Lanka. And again, it was the models that I was using, but I was synthesizing physical literacy through it. So I was trying to get them to reflect on how the models can help develop an individual from a physical literacy perspective. So that's where I've got to so far. Let's see if that moves. Yep. So as I say, I've been fortunate. I've been to a lot of countries, and Min and Robin will recognize the Taiwan pictures there, Brazil, India, China, Sri Lanka, and as I've mentioned there, using Mostyn Spectrum and filtering it through to get the teachers to think about their practices. Then, of course, the Spectrum came onto my radar, and I got invited to do one of the workshops. And again, that re-energized my thoughts. So I ended up writing a journal article for one of the journals in the UK. And again, it keeps, as you keep reflecting on your practices, you keep working with other people, you keep looking at more and more from the models. So on to physical literacy. The young lady here is now in her mid-80s, Margaret. And I know some of you are aware of the concept, but some of you might not be as aware as the concept. But Margaret really is the oracle when it comes to physical literacy. She spent a lot of her time researching the concept, developing the concept, sharing it, and it's now just mushroomed like nothing else throughout the world. It's misunderstood in many places, unfortunately. Unfortunately, some of the organisations who picked up on it early used it for long-term athlete development purposes, which didn't do any favours. But the holistic focus is the real emphasis. And the reasons why Margaret developed it, she was concerned about the lack of respect of our embodied interaction, our embodied dimension, the holistic nature of us and how we work, and the simplistic nature of us being fit to move to get that body, that brain around, because the brain is the most important. And the dualistic idea there was one she very much went against. Like all of us, she was worried about the levels of physical inactivity throughout the world. And I don't need to go in that. We all know the problems, both for adults and for children. She also felt that physical education focused on the talented rather than everyone. And I guess that the people in this room were the talented, the ones who were successful. But I bet you know a lot of people who didn't enjoy PE. And when I do sessions on physical literacy for parents, it's really interesting. I hated cross country. I hated hockey. I hated the kit we had to wear going out in cold weather. So we do know that physical education taught badly can put people off being active throughout their lives. And unfortunately, this focus on talent doesn't help. Small few to win the cups, yes, aren't we a good school? But what about the other 90% of the children? What are they going to do for the rest of their lives? So she was concerned about that. The limited range of experiences. And again, it might have worked for you. In your school, your teacher was interested in football. You were good at football. They put lots of opportunities for you. You thrived. But for those who weren't good at football or didn't enjoy football, they didn't. And so providing that range of experiences is really important. And then including or excluding. You know, again, I think back to my youth, and those children who had disabilities or special educational needs often went to the library and not to PE. And our job is to include everyone. She was keen to talk about the lifelong journey, and I have seen the lady somewhere. She is around, who was talking about the early years. Yep, there you are. And the importance of our early stage, because physical literacy is our relationship with activity throughout our life, from birth to death. In fact, I've just been talking to Robin about older adults and the importance of being active and keeping moving, keeping healthy. So that personal lifelong journey and how we change and fluctuate. And again, if I'm looking at you, it'd be interesting how many people were active today. Who was out there with Robin and Min this morning? I know some people went for a run, Brendan, and there were probably others who went out there and did something. How many of you have been active this week? This month? And then you start thinking, oh, I haven't done anything for a while because I'm under pressure from my family, from my work, from my travel, etc. So your journey, your relationship with physical activity will change throughout your life. And you need to recognize that. But we want to try and make sure you are active. And then comparison with others. I've seen mentions of fitness and fitness tests and things like that, and that's not what we want. We don't want that because we know children will get turned off and it does them no value. It's no point in comparing me to Robin, we're totally different. So these are some of the things that Margaret talked about. She also did a lot of work on the philosophies underpinning physical literacy. Monism is one I've just touched on. We had a talk last night, it seemed ages ago, wasn't it, about the philosophers in Greece. Unfortunately, some of those philosophers thought the body and mind were different, and the mind was far more important, and the body serviced to carry the mind around. But we know that's totally different. We know our experiences are holistic, and we need to value the physical, the affective, the cognitive, and the social aspects equally. She looked at existentialism, and this is, I think, probably the key thing in relation to us as PE teachers. We provide experiences in schools. The children are in there. Every child goes to school throughout the world. So we have an opportunity to impact on those children. If those experiences are good and positive, then those children will want to come back because they've enjoyed it, they've learned, they've developed, they've grown. So from an existentialist point of view, that then makes them as individuals. It then influences what they do in the future and how they see the world, and that's the phenomenology aspect. So they become subjective. So if they have had a bad experience in swimming and learning to swim, they don't want to swim. They've been put off, and it'll take quite a lot to get them back in there. So we need to think about that. I'm going to use this diagram. Natalie Hauser and Dean Creelars shared it originally, and I have modified it because in England we had a consensus process because Sport England wanted to get a definition of physical literacy that they felt was a little bit easier to understand. So a number of people worked on this, and so we've come up with a definition. But I'm not going to use that definition because Natalie Hauser and Dean Creelars created this one, and I haven't used it before, and I thought I'm going to try it, see what you think. So first of all, the concept is about life, your relationship with physical activity throughout your life. And we all come from different communities. We are different individuals, offspring of different parents, so we've got different genes. We live in different places and spaces, and we've got different cultures. So all of these aspects, therefore, impact on our experiences. And it was interesting on the bus coming here yesterday. I was talking to Brendan, who's from Australia, on the Brisbane, on the nice coastal area. So he's got access to beach and the sea. He's got sunshine every day, so they can be outside. But he's also got all of the games that we gave them. The Brits gave the Aussies, the rugby union, the rugby league, the cricket. But actually, they've invented some of their own, the Aussie rules. And that's an aspect that he's interested. So it's an opportunity he will get. Whereas Mark, from his Canadian background and now American background is up there in the hills. He's got all these open spaces. He's still got the baseball, the NFL, the basketball as main cultural sports, but they've got those open spaces that they like to use. Min and Robin, you've seen the Tai Chi. Shraddha in India, they've got the cricket. They play cricket anywhere. Any space, cricket will be played, whether it's a little alleyway or it's open fields. But there's other activities like badminton and dancing that are available. So we all have our experiences. These experiences impact on us in those 4 domains I've just mentioned. So the cognitive, how we think, the social, how we connect with others, the physical, how we move, and then the psychology, how we feel. Here's your bit. As an educator, if you're providing the right activities in the right way, and toolbox has been mentioned, and I will mention it more than once in this session. If you draw from the toolbox the right tools at the right time for the right people who you're working with, then you will develop their confidence. You will develop how they value physical activity. You will develop their motivation. That will impact on their participation, which will develop them from a physical, affective, cognitive, social perspective, as long as your strategies fit in with that. And that active participation will gradually, and another term used earlier on, give them that autonomy, that agency, that meaning, and that enjoyment. And that cycle, that process will continue. So here's the IPLA definition. The motivation, confidence, physical competence, knowledge and understanding to take responsibility and value engagement in physical activity for life. And you can see all of those aspects linked together. It's a journey. Right from the word dot, if we're put on the floor, we'll move more. If we're put in a chair to sit there, we won't. So parents have a key role. The early years is absolutely valuable. And the experiences we get, I mentioned the variety of activities, the quality of the activities, these will all influence whether we engage. We'll have challenges on the way. We might have certain activities we follow for a period of time, but then we find we can't do them because of injury or whatever, and we might change to do other activities. So our journey is a lifelong process. But I would say our core purpose is to nurture capable, caring, active individuals by fostering positive lifelong relationships with movement and physical activity. Our core purpose, physical educators. So we have a responsibility to provide meaningful physical activity, positive experiences to help people develop this physical literacy and holistic well-being. I'm just going to jump 2 ones because I'm going to do toolbox. There you go. I said I'd get it in there. It'll come in again later. So we are physical literacy facilitators who are physical educators. Okay, that's how I see us. Now, I did mention we'd come up with some principles, and as I said, with Sport England, we came up with this consensus process, which got a definition. But working with countries all over the world, because there are a number of different definitions, we felt what was important is to highlight the key principles. So we've come up with this little acronym, which is quite nice, that physical literacy is tailored to the individual. Again, so that movement is meaningful for them. It looks at their strengths, their needs, their circumstances. And again, I hope your cogs are going in relation to Boston Spectrum, because this is what we need to be doing. It's holistic. I've just been talking about that, the 4 domains, and we want to recognize and try and help develop every child holistically through the experiences. It's reflexive. We want students to reflect and be critical in relation to what they enjoy, how they're enjoying it, celebrate the success, celebrate the achievement. It's inclusive. We want every child, no matter what capability, no matter what ability, to be involved in the process. It should be varied. You remember I said about Margaret wanting to have a wide range of experiences, because we don't know what we don't know. And if we haven't had experiences, how do we know whether we'll enjoy it? And it should be empowering. Again, these words, choice, voice, ownership, they came up earlier on. So, what I'm going to do now is just go through those key terms, those key concepts, and start to reflect a bit in relation to the spectrum. So tailored, designed around our strengths, needs, circumstances. Now, although I've used some examples here, it's not definitive. These are examples. And I'm sure as I'm going through, you think, actually, that style could be in there, and this style could be in there. Absolutely right. So I'm just giving you this to give you a flavour, to think, actually, the styles can have an impact in a number of different ways if we think about it. So as a teacher, we need to think, what is our impact? What are our objectives, and how are we going to do that? So inclusion, where we're adapting our tasks for all different abilities. The guided and convergent discoveries, allowing the workers to work at their own pace. And the divergent, letting people come up with their own solutions, again, based on their individual strengths. And yeah, I agree with most people who've been speaking today. I think the last three styles perhaps are less used in schools. But as Mark said, perhaps style K is the one, the ultimate goal that we're looking for almost, where these individuals are able to manage their own learning and their own engagement. So the spectrum allows learning to be personalized. It allows us as teachers to choose the right style according to the needs, circumstances of the child. From a holistic point of view, it's quite obvious how we can develop the social cognitive affective aspects. I was talking to Sharada earlier about the reciprocal, and I often use examples of the reciprocal because I find the fact of communication is really important. I remember having a boy swimming. He was a very high level swimmer. He was only 13, but he was swimming every day, at least once a day, if not twice a day. And I had him in a swimming class with another 30 boys of mixed abilities. So what do I do with him? Well, actually, his confidence and his social skills weren't as good as many of the other children. So I then got him to be my mini coach, a form of reciprocal work, and I encouraged him to provide feedback from a reciprocal perspective, and so he then grew in his self-esteem. So we can see how the different styles allow us to help individuals and support their personal development. Similarly, the self-check from a cognitive and affective perspective. The guided discovery, the convergent, the divergent discovery, all very creative, cognitive aspects. So the spectrum allows us to focus on that holistic development. It also allows us to reflect. And again, as you can see, there's going to be a lot of repetition here because many of the styles do impact in different ways. The self-check is a more structured reflection. The inclusion is about thinking about whether I want to engage in that activity, or that activity. I often use a rock climbing wall when I'm talking about inclusion and say, do you want to go up a fairly flat wall with great big holes, or do you want to go up a slightly steeper one with smaller holes, or an even steeper one with very small holes? Yours is the choice. So you need to reflect how comfortable you feel, choose that option, and then you can either choose to make it harder or make it easier. Similarly, the learner designed and initiated, and the self-teaching, as I've said earlier. Okay, from an inclusive point of view, it's an interesting one, and we've mentioned about command, and almost command is that, oh, we don't want to be going to command, but actually, command usually does include everyone. You know, follow me, we're doing this, everybody's included, but it doesn't necessarily meet the needs of everyone. So you've got to have a group of children who are able to do what you're asking to do at that time. So command can be inclusive, but it has the possibility of being exclusive as well. Practice style allows everyone to go at their own pace, so it includes them. Reciprocal style, as I've just mentioned, is inclusive. And obviously the inclusion style itself. Varied, exploring different ways and providing different challenges. So again, having the different styles, the practice, all the discovery and the self-initiated ones allow learners to explore and then replicate or find different ways of doing things depending on what you're looking for within your aspect of work. And then empowering, giving students the choice, the voice, and the ownership. Just talked about inclusion, the choice there. The discovery ones, I think, are really important here because you're empowering the children to then think and be creative and to try different ways of working. So they have a little bit more ownership of those. And certainly the learner initiated and designed, you're really passing over that ownership to the children at that stage. So, looking at the big picture, we've got the reproduction styles that support the structure, inclusion, and access. We've got the production styles that are more supportive of agency, reflection, and empowerment. But as I mentioned earlier, and I'm sure you're going through, and he's not put that in there, and he's not put this in here. You're right. You can see different ways in which the styles will impact differently on different sections. And I've tried to put them in a bit of a table there, but I think it helps you see that actually many of the styles can apply to many of the concepts we're looking for from a physical literacy development in relation to the personal development of an individual. So back to the toolbox again, and what I've done more recently is thought about the teachers themselves and how they can be more productive. And again, I've had a number of conversations with lots of different academics about how do we get teachers to change their practices. We know we want to do things. And I was at a meeting in Loughborough with Ash Casey on models-based practice. And the teacher was saying, I've got my department and I want to change practices and I'm introducing these new models, and they try it for a week or two and then they go back to what they're doing. And I think the same is the case. I was talking to Shada yesterday. The same is the case with the spectrum. We try to encourage people to look at the different styles. So unless the work has been done in the initial teacher training, and unless the students have had a variety of pedagogical experiences themselves, then actually to try and change them is really hard. But let's see where we get to. So we want practitioners who are committed to growth from a personal development point of view, a collaboration and a self-reflection. This is what we're doing here. So we're allowing ourselves that time to reflect what's out there, how can we work together, and how can we help moving things forwards. And using things like the Thrive key principles, using the spectrum as a whole, allows us as practitioners potentially to move forward. But we need that impetus, and certainly the Spectrum Institute is one of those organisations who can do that. Many of you are involved in universities and you can do that, but we need a lot more of it worldwide. Champion every individual, the equity advocate. We need to broaden the competence of individuals. We need to disrupt the exclusion aspects. We need to personalise, and we need to work on advocacy. So to allow us to do that, again, we need to think of the styles that will fit in to those, and how we can encourage people to value these diverse movement cultures to ensure that everyone sees themselves as a mover. And again, to me, the spectrum provides that flexibility to allow teachers to think about what they can do, how they can do it, and how they can include everyone. We want to empower through our processes. We want to give that choice, that co-creation, which again was a term was mentioned earlier. Constraints-led learning was mentioned earlier. And assessment was also mentioned earlier. And I think again, going to Brendan, I think you raised this point earlier, how assessment can drive our practices because of the limits on time that we've got and what's being expected. And one of my arguments with England at the moment is we haven't got this assessment right. We've got a new curriculum that's coming in. They still haven't said how it's going to be assessed. But teachers naturally will think, how are we going to be assessed? And then work back, how am I going to get there? And if assessment doesn't, we were talking about the American teachers test. What a nonsense that is. It's wrong. But unfortunately, that's what they're having to work towards. But we need to change that. Okay. So as facilitator, we need to make sure there is choice, there is autonomy, there's co-creation, and there's problem solving that's allowed. And this empowerment is really important. Lifelong, we mentioned it with Mark earlier on. We are lifelong advocates. We are the architects. We have that opportunity to influence from that perspective. We can empower. We can give that knowledge and understanding. We can celebrate progress. We can look at pathways. So the link here with the styles in relation to the ownership of those movement journeys, by giving students that opportunity to own their learning and to help that be more sustainable, another aspect that was mentioned earlier, in how we create habits that are appropriate for lifelong engagement in movement and physical activity. And then educator of values, developing the life skills, the leadership, the transfer of the communication skills. And again, if you think of these styles, the reciprocal, the guided discovery, where we have these opportunities to communicate, to solve problems, these are all qualities that we need as individuals as we go through life. And we have that opportunity to provide those and help encourage those to prepare people for further life. We have the community builder to make sure that people feel safe, they belong, they're included. And that's both within the school and within the local community. And again, we've mentioned some of these styles earlier on. But children have to relate to you, your class, your school, your local community. And therefore, the activities, the strategies you use need to lead and work towards that. And then finally, the thoughtful designer. This is where you get your toolkit out. And your toolkit needs to have that variety in it. You need that spanner, you need that hammer, you need that saw, because you will have 30 different children, 80 in some countries, 30 in a lot, who are all different, who have their different experiences, and you have got to work out where they're at and how you move them forwards. And for me, the spectrum allows you to do that. You can draw from the tools that the spectrum has, and then you can provide those opportunities and experiences in different ways with different people. So I've pulled that together again in a bit of a table, which I know will probably not that easy for you to read. But the reflective practitioner ensures a variety of teaching styles are used and holistic development is a focus. The equity advocate promotes identity, dignity, and belonging. The facilitator develops motivation, creativity, and agency. The lifelong architect embeds that motivation, self-determination. The educator of values looks at responsibility, teamwork, and resilience. The community builder looks at that social connection, fostering relationships between peers and group dynamics. And the thoughtful designer builds that confidence and competence through that range of experiences. So the big picture. Mostyn's is a great pedagogical tool. It's got that continuum, as we all know and we've seen shared today. And I think the physical literacy facilitator is that person who offers those opportunities in the right way to nurture capable, confident, connected, and motivated movers. So there is this synergy between physical literacy and the spectrum, and that's really important. So the take-home message: physical literacy is multidimensional. It requires attention for motivation, confidence, competence, knowledge, and understanding, not just skill acquisition. The spectrum provides unique learning, different styles that support different aspects of physical literacy. Pedagogical flexibility is essential. No single style, as we've heard earlier on, is better than any other. And I think each style can be modified according to its needs and the time that you're focusing on. And future-focused practice matters. Teacher education, curriculum design must embrace the spectrum and must have physical literacy as its focus. Okay, there you go.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. And now it's the time for all of you. Any idea, comments, or the questions? Please raise your hand.
We know it's coffee break.
Okay, I ask a question first. Hi, Nigel.
Yeah.
How do you think the educational value can connect with the spectrum?
The educational?
Educational value, as you mentioned, how to connect with the spectrum. Yeah, value. Yeah.
Can connect with the spectrum. Well,
Teaching.
Essentially, the spectrum is giving us that wide range of strategies. And if we create the right opportunities, then children are going to enjoy the physical activity and they will value it as part of their lifestyle. And again, someone put up habits. I've just written an article on habits, and someone mentioned sustainable development goals, and I've linked habits to inner development goals and sustainable development goals. And if we get it right, we get young people who've got the right habits, and that means they're valuing. There's another word that was up there earlier, disposition. Some people like it, some people don't. I like it. We all, to me, we have a disposition to choose to be active or not. And I mentioned that earlier. And that really is how we value things. If we value it, we're more disposed to do it, we choose to do it. So the positive experiences is the key, and having the right types of experiences in physical education, using the right strategies, the right range of activities, that will help us value physical activity throughout our lives. Okay? Any other questions? If there aren't, I'm not going anywhere. It's a long way back. It's a 4-hour coach trip, so I'm going to be here all the time. So, Nikos, yeah.
Thank you, Nigel, for the interesting presentation. Now it's a kind of philosophical question before going for coffee philosophy. That is, you triggered my attention here. We are talking about the physical literacy, and we are using the term physical that is coming from Greek language.
Yeah.
I can make a comment here, because it took me several, years to discover the history of the meaning behind the word physical. Now, in the ancient world, the word physical had the meaning of the exploration or the examination of the physical world. So whatever you can touch. So the body, for example, is something you can touch. And that was the situation until the 16th century, approximately. Now, what happened in the 16th century or somewhere there? The examination of the physical world became focused on the examination of the human body. One of the greatest examples, actually, coming from Padua. Where is Attilio? Yeah. Yeah. So they were examining the body and the human anatomy and everything. And after that period, after the 16th century, the word physical, instead of having the meaning of examining the physical world, because the focus was the examination of the body, it acquired the meaning of examining the body. So physical, you mean the body, actually.
Yeah.
And this has, it's interesting how words can change meanings through the
I don't know whether you've got
ages.
anything else, because I am aware of this. The Greeks, unfortunately, you've got 3 different meanings of physical, from what I've led to believe, from Stathis.
I'm not counting words.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's one of the challenges is language throughout the world, and one of the challenges is making things simple. I remember taking Margaret to Brazil, and they translated in Portuguese "física literamento," and it meant physical alphabet. Yeah, and you go, oh.
But
it's really hard, and because Margaret did her work, Margaret often talks about embodied interaction. Now, when you talk about embodied interaction, you're going to switch more people off. I've had so many discussions about the term with so many different people. It is a challenge, but physical literacy is our embodied interaction with something, and physical literacy is our embodied interaction from a physical perspective. It's how we move up and down the stairs here. It's how we go into the swimming pool. It's how we do Tai Chi. It's how we interact, and it's our choice to interact. When Margaret was doing this, it's using that term, is that holistic holistic focus. As with any term, and if I asked everybody here what physical education is, I'd get a different opinion from everyone. It is a challenge because your physical education, your language, and there's lots of languages throughout the world, makes it slightly different to other languages. So it is an issue. What a lot of countries have done, instead of translating, they've just kept physical literacy, the English version. And to me, that's why when we came up with the Thrive statement, unpacking the key principles is almost more important than the term itself, because the key principles are what we're all focused on.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. And not to talk.
I have a small question about Greek words. Soma, somatic. How to translate to English, right?
Body.
Body, yeah.
Yeah.
Just body. Okay.
Body. That's simple.
That's an easy one. That's good. There's a gentleman behind you.
Here is a place for philosophy, but we need to go for coffee philosophy, so we will not.
Absolutely.
We should not stay longer, but just for the coffee break and the discussion between you, also about the definition of physical literacy that has been in the main literature, which, although holistic and everything that you say and so on, still to me and to us, I think, several of us in Greece, seems to be a little bit individualistic, a little bit self-centered, because it speaks too much about the individual. But here in this place, we're talking about for the society as well. Mm-hmm. And then when we're talking about well-being, it is not only the personal well-being which is self-centered, but it is the societal well-being as well. Mm-hmm. So physical literacy, it is something a little bit beyond myself, and goes, at least in this culture, in this area where we are, it is also about the demonic well-being, which it's connected also with the well-being of others, society, environment, everything that we interact, physical, living, and people, and so on. Okay,
so that's exactly what I've just written about.
Yeah. But it's for the coffee time.
But in actual fact, your physical literacy is yours. It's no one else's. Okay, so everyone has their own physical literacy. Now, if your physical literacy contributes to the well-being of society, happy days, right? And that's the thing. So from a sustainable development point of view, if we're all healthy, active, enjoying, engaging in physical activity, we don't need the health people as much, right? We work, we're happier in our lives, we feel content, we flourish. So that's important for society as a whole. But the bottom line is our physical literacy is our choice to be active or not, and how we choose to be active, which can contribute to the society's benefit. But a good coffee one. Discuss.
We have a gift to our Keynote. Second. Yeah.